the problem starts as always at home. And if you don't have a stable family with a participating and invested father, it's over. I don't care where they go to school. I don't care if it's private or public. I don't care if Heather has 2.5 months. I don't care. It's over. And so, you got to have good parents, both of them present. And if not, then the state's going to take over. We've demoralized young men by telling them they're not needed. Also blaming them for all forms of sexism and discrimination and the wage gap and everything like that. I mean, we've increased taxes, so a man can't support a family on one income. I mean, where do you want to go? The entire environment has become so, I don't want to say, well, hostile is one way to put it, but borderline impossible to find a quality gal, get married, have kids, start a family, if that's your goal. That a lot of guys, are going to make the economic, and they're going to do a cost benefit analysis, and they're going to drop out. And a lot of them are going to drop out and just kind of do their thing in terms of a ghost. Some men are going to excel, and they'll be, the top tier of men that kind of monopolize or get all the gals. But then there's going to certainly be a percentage of men either who cannot, like they're just physically unattractive, they're too short, they're physically disabled, something's wrong where they're never stand a chance, and that would be the true incels, the involuntary celibates. But unfortunately, I think there's been such a demoralization, not to mention we've put life on easy mode. Let's also put some blame where it also belongs, that is the men. Men are pussies nowadays. They don't work hard, they don't want to go to the gym, they don't want to become engineers, and for them it's a weakness and a cowardice where they're like, oh, screw those girls, like a preemptive rejection. Well, screw, I'm an incel, I couldn't get laid anyway. It's like, no, you didn't try, you didn't go to the gym, you didn't achieve anything, you're just using this as an excuse. And because men are so programmed to pursue women, because it's your genetics, they lash out at these gals somewhat fairly, yet at the same time somewhat unfairly. So it kind of really depends on who you're talking about. Like if you're talking about someone who is very short and it's just not physically attractive, well, that person he's also probably resigned himself to accept his kind of fate that he's not going to do too well with the ladies. But I see way too many men using this as a cope to excuse their lack of performance and commitment and investment in themselves, which formed, I would call, the hypocritical incels.
Night Nation Review asks Aaron what the percentage of women are actually legitimate marriage material. The number's like 2 to 4%.
I got, well, that's one. I got it here. I think it is like 2.7% because I wrote a book called The Book of Numbers, which I got right here. Assumptions. It's in the single digits and low single digits. If I recall correctly, it's like 2.7%.
What do you qualify as marriageable?
Boy, if you give me time, I didn't know if I had I known, I could have consulted my notes. Marriageable notes. Hang on, bear with me.
No problem.
Here we go. I got it. Here, you ready for the official methodology? Because the social sciences are so legit. Okay.
Right. There's no replication crisis at all.
No. And admittedly, in this, I admit this is ballpark. Okay. So here's how I've defined it. You're not obese or overweight. All right. So that's one. You do not have a worthless degree or corresponding debt. You're a financial liability. That's a third. Leftist, socialist, feminist politics. That's a fourth. You're single mom. That's a fifth. STDs. That's a sixth. You have mental illness. That's a seventh. Bodily mutilation as defined by excessive tattoos, or irrational or irregular piercings. That's eighth. And that was it. So those are the 8 variables. Like I kind of broke it down to those 8 main deal breakers. And when you factor in that and for cross correlation, because this may shock you, Andrew, a feminist who has a worthless degree and has financial troubles might also be prone to tattoo herself and dye her hair crazy colors. So there's some. Well, so we had to back that out and account for the cross correlation. But yeah, in the end, you're looking at less than 3%.
Gotcha. One of the things my wife often brings up is how little boys in school are treated like little girls. That essentially from a young age, you have female teachers. The entire institutions are basically female run. And so most of the rules that are applied in public schools towards young boys would be essentially favored for girls, and they're the rough and tumble, all of that stuff is kind of phased out.
Mm.
Do you think that that's kind of where the starting point is that's making them kind of what you would call pussies?
Yeah, I don't know if I call it the starting point. The starting point, I would say, is broken homes and a lack of a father. And either the father is absent because he's a deadbeat dad and skipped town. I can't even say wife because it's not assumed people are married anymore. The mother divorced or left the guy. And what I think is much more common is you might have a dad who's present, but he's a pussy himself, and he does not invest any time raising his child. So I'd say that's where it starts, the family. But then continuing on with the family, I'm pissed off with a lot of quote conservative dads and conservative parents where I can't believe what's happening in the schools. Well, do you sit your kids down and teach them? Are you that appalled by the schools? Why don't you homeschool? Well, I couldn't give up my career. My career's more, literally translated to English, my career is more important than my children. And let's just be honest, most parents, conservative or not, libertarian or not, Democrat or not, they don't want to raise their own damn kids. They want to pay for babysitting in the form of public schools. And so they'd rather have their kids indoctrinated, both young boys and girls. And then it is a continuation where the parents have abdicated responsibility of the child and given it to the state. And the state obviously has a huge financial and political and economic incentive to raise little micro-communists or micro-socialists or certainly Democrats to continue to vote for the teachers. Teachers themselves obviously have vested financial interests. And so that's, yeah, and yes, and starting off very young, you are skewed towards female teachers. I wouldn't even necessarily consider it their fault. They're female. What, like it'd be like you mean, how dare you teach them from a masculine perspective? Like, well, last I checked, I got a penis and I don't know any other way to be. So I can kind of understand where, you're going to have a female bias, but inevitably by middle school or later grade school, you should have a guy or a high school coach or a middle school coach or some kind of masculine influence. But those, for the most part, those teachers are pussies too. And these are not masculine men. These are teachers. These are nobodies. So I think the problem starts as always at home. And if you don't have a stable family with a participating and invested father, it's over. I don't care where they go to school. I don't care if it's private or public. I don't care if Heather has 2.5 months. I don't care. It's over. And so, you got to have good parents, both of them present. And if not, then the state's going to take over.